my name's Ron Nelson, and I'm the Executive Director here at the museum. And it's an amazing experience that every day you come to this piece of property and you look out there, and it's like seeing it again for the first time. I love it. Barbara's work has that for me too. And whenever I'm watching it, looking at it, I do continually see things. Oh my God, how did I miss that? And I'm supposed to hit it all, but it's so, this particular body of work is so unique and wonderful. And in your museum world, sometimes we say it's better to work with a dead artist than a live artist. The dead ones don't have that much of an opinion, the live ones do. But working with Barbara has really been a joy, and getting to know her. And
Pre-posthumous.
yes.
Pre-posthumous.
And her work is amazing. And we know she's an amazing person. So this particular group, I will let you talk about more, but when I saw these initially, Andy Weber, and I then found out that these were from late 60s, I was just blown away that they had to be shown again and again and again. So I absolutely love them, and I love knowing you, where you are in your journey, and everything that you're doing, what's coming up, what's going on. Sue Ann Robinson is Director Emerita. One day she actually resigned. So I got her to do 1 day a week. She's working here. Don't want to do it without her. She's amazing. So I'm gonna thank you. We're about to turn 75, which is the new 40. And we're 75 years old for a cultural institution and a collecting museum in Southern California. Makes us one of the oldest museums in California.
Oh, wow.
And we are, and in Southern California, what's been wonderful about the collection, it's always collected contemporary art. What was contemporary art in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? And looking back at that work and the collection, but also how those pieces made it into the museum and into the collection. And I think there's wonderful stories that are coming out for that. So as we turn 75, we'll give you more information as we go. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to introduce someone that doesn't need an introduction, and Barbara Strasen, the artist.
That's very sweet. Well, thank you all for coming. So this work, I haven't seen this work in forever, and it was a real shock, because I remember the work is burned into my consciousness, but I totally forgot about what I did and why. So getting to see it now is like learning to rewrite a bicycle. So you remember doing something, but you don't remember why, and then you think, oh yeah, synapse from back here. I remember now, and why did I do that? And now I remember, and what would it be like if I did it again next week? So it brings up all kinds of things, and it's certainly my point of view that consciousness is very fluid, and memory is very, very fluid, and awareness is very fluid. So all the things, all the sort of incipient bits in these works, I see crawling forward in time in my work, see the changes moving forward in time and the beginnings embedded in this work. So it's a little creepy.
You and this is the same time you two met as colleagues or as artists.
Sue Ann?
Yeah.
Yes, well, remember that show we did in Santa Ana? Mm-hmm. We did a show together in Santa Ana College, and one of the things they wanted us to do was spend some time talking to students. So we decided we would have a 3-hour session per week or something like that. So we had big tables, and the idea is students would just come and talk to us if they wanted, but we wanted something to do in the meantime while we were also talking to each other. So we each had a project.
Right. And actually, you have one reference of that in the slides. That body of work looks quite different from this, but actually isn't quite different from this. I have a slightly different question based on being an artist myself. Since this is called Beyond the Frame, we're not just talking about this work. And you've hinted at this. Seeing all of this older work has inspired you to do new work. But on a day-to-day basis, do you do anything before you go in the studio to sort of kickstart your...
Yeah.
Great. What?
I've gotten really aware of sleep cycles, and this is where you're going to want to know, every 2 hours I get up to go to the bathroom. And before, and before that, it's what, REM sleep, right?
Yep.
And I get ideas, and the ideas have to do exactly with what I need to do during the day in the studio. This is actually very predictable now.
Wow.
So for instance, I've kind of been stewing about something like, how do I get this thing to incorporate into that thing? How do I unify these elements compositionally? And I'll get a sort of notion, which is almost like I could see it. It's a vision, but it's not it's not like a photographic vision. It says do this, and then I get up and I do that. That's what I do.
Fantastic.
But
I should dream like that.
No, but I think that's what REM sleep does. It makes us alert to problem solving, alert to things we're trying to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And intuition, I think that we process it that way also. I'm very much a visual learner, and I'm also trust my intuition. And I think that happens through psychological changes that are happening during sleep. And so then you fall back on that, and you feel very comfortable with it because you know it, and you've known it for a while.
Yeah. And if I get to the studio and I get this notion and it's crap, I just disregard it and go for something else. but it's a jump-in point, and it's reliable. It's not reliable in a precise photographic sense, but it's reliable in a
Jumping off.
Yeah, jumping off.
What in this room, what would you tell our audience to look for?
Look for spatial weave.
Spatial what?
Weaving. What's in front of what, what's in back of what connects laterally, side to side.
So compositionally.
Yeah, compositionally.
Interesting. Yeah.
And also connections. That's something that I'm looking at. And a lot of these devices are chosen for their festiveness. Balloons and, well, of course, the hooks are not necessarily festive, but I would like to think that they're festive in this context. In any case, they're not dangerous or lethal.
Do we know any of the models? Or are these any friends?
I've always worked from photographs, starting from photographs, and the sources of the photographs are wildly different. So I might have taken the photographs, or I would be given the photographs. I had a friend, an artist friend, who was a quality control person for Kodak.
Wow.
And this is in the Bay Area, and his job was to go through all the prints and pick out the crappy prints and put them in a pile. And he could have the pile, and he would give them to me. So a lot of these characters came from that archive. And I'd find sources in magazines, like there's Jack Kennedy, and there's Bleiberg, the first heart transplant, in the smoggy one on the left. And so I find characters and I find types, and that always seemed really interesting to me. Was that the answer?
Is that the answer?
It's going to be.
In 5 minutes, I'll have a different answer. I think.
It's interesting to me because we did an exhibition of your lenticular work. Some people remember, well, if you were here. This was in 2015-16. And I don't remember as many people. So when did that shift?
Well, you know, it definitely did shift.
Yeah.
I did a series of portraits in the 80s of friends. And I just would have a little photograph of a friend and conversation with another friend. And the conversation was, I remember saying to my friend, about 40% of my life is pure crap. And then the friend said, boy, you're lucky. Me, I got 60%. And then we talked and we kind of split the difference. But then I remember seeing a picture book of the Chinese people's painting club from Chinese Communist Village Painting Club. And everybody used the same palette. It was one red in a tint, one blue in a tint, one green in a tint. And I thought, okay, I'm going to work from that highly democratic point of view. So I used exactly their palette, and I used their way of painting, just flat color. And I had 4 outcomes for each person, 4 rectangles, canvases, which were 4 different sizes, but everybody had the same 4 sizes. And then there was the triangular photo portrait of the person, of the friend. And the person was black and white photograph, looking very just flat, no posing for the camera, just flat. And then there was the circle, and the circle was the demon. We all have a demon. And I figured the demon was maybe, I worked a percentage, I actually made it too small, but it was about this size. And I went to a book about Mexican masks for the demon, because I thought, well, what better demon source than Mexican masks? So everybody got a partial demon face, same palette as the Chinese painting. So I wanted to democratize all that.
Wow.
So the faces morphed into the demon faces and the photo faces. And then I did a whole lot of portraits without the people in it, without the representations of people in it. I did their mind states. There's one slide that shows that. Anyway.
That's interesting.
Got away from portraiture as such.
The change from, these are very much peopled. And the exhibition later had very few people. And the other change that I noticed right away, these are large, and for the most part, the lenticulars were not large, except for the one at the LA airport, which was large.
That helped us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the size or relationship change too because of the medium?
Just after, when I was a graduate student, a bunch of us rented a barn. The barn was about to be demolished, and I had no grasp of size and door openings. I was such a dummy. I can't believe it. So I made a huge canvas stretcher, and I couldn't get it out the door. And then I did some other paintings, driving them to San Francisco, and they were on the roof of the car, lashed on the roof. And I watched one of them just slide off the roof of the car and go over the edge of the Bay Bridge and just go down like that and land ever so delicately on the water. I'll never forget it. It was almost worth it because it was it was fantastic. So I got very much aware of shipping, sizing, shipping,
That whole concept of size.
I learned the hard work.
But there is a relationship between the viewer and the size of the work too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a different impact. I don't know whether that.
Actually, one of the things that I've always wanted to try, but I never did, and I might never do it. I had a graduate student who made, and at that time, the currency of the realm were slides, photo slides, and little tiny things like that. And this artist made a whole bunch of tiny paintings the size of one slide. And they must have been 80 in a thesis exhibition. And they were wonderful because you had to go up really, really close to see them, which means that it was a very intimate experience between the viewer and the tiny little slide. It was so interesting, but I'll never do it. But I hope somebody here does it. I think I'm going to show some of these. I just have about 10 of them as a sort of. So this happened after this work, which meant that things got even more elaborate in 3D space. And I was doing some dioramas, and the dioramas were always intended to be an homage to the Natural History Museum in New York, which was my home away from home. Oh, I love that place. Oh my God. And I remember reading that the Grand Canyon was about to get flooded. So I wanted to make an artwork about the flooded Grand Canyon. So in this case, the two concave halves are separate, and they bolt together and back. And then there's a kind of hood like that. And there are 4 layers of net that hang from that part. And the colors were picked to add up to smog, which they do. And then I made some cutouts that stand up in front, and you can stretch the space or shrink the space according to where you put the cutouts. So you can put them 20 feet ahead or 10 feet ahead or whatever. So that's flooded Grand Canyon. And this is one of the portraits of friends where you don't see a picture of the friend. It's a sort of psychological portrait. And this was a friend who was having family troubles, definite family troubles. And so I actually made a jigsaw puzzle. I mean, I cut the top image up, and it fits together, but I glued the top cutouts onto the image underneath such that you can't exactly tell if things are coming together or blasting apart, which was the ambiguity of the portrait.
It's beautiful.
Gold. Real gold. I mean, fake real gold.
Yep.
So this is the first iteration of an installation. This was from Eindhoven, Netherlands, and it was called Connections. And this is a tiny detail of it, and I wanted, all the cutouts are made out of Tyvek, which is a kind of plasticky paper, and you can't tear it. And each one of them is painted. I was painting them with sponges of different colors, and I wanted to paint them with colors that made them look like they were about 12,000 years old and just excavated from underground. And they encompassed 4 groups of creatures. One is contemporary people, contemporary animals, contemporary ancient people, and humanimals, or the mythic human-animal deity persons from different cultures. And then along the floor, could be my favorite part, are these blue feet and paws and claws and hoofs. And they're all democratized to be the same size. So a hummingbird foot would be the same size as a rhinoceros foot. Because I wanted to, I wanted to knock humans off center, and make it democratic for creatures. So that was this piece, and that's a detail.
It's wonderful.
That's the same view again. Okay, and this was another installation after that, where I started to make wallpaper. I called it Wallpaper for the 21st Century. And it's also on Tyvek, which didn't tear. And there are actually 3 walls, and you're only seeing part of 2 walls. but it was in a gallery, and the chairs, so each panel in the wallpaper ended in a curtain. So here you see the red curtain at the end of the wall on the left. And you'll see the wall sconce, which is, you see that green face, Mesoamerican mask? Well, you'll see that again. It's a lenticular. And if you ever need great art making ideas, go to IKEA. You'll find all kinds of great stuff in IKEA. I mean, just wonderful. I found the holder for that the wall sconce was from IKEA, and I just slotted the lenticular right in there, and it's slightly backlit, tiny little light bulb, and it's perfect. So, and the chairs are from IKEA, and I just painted on the chairs. So the motifs that around 3 walls were small motifs with pastel colors, slowly getting bigger. Motifs are getting bigger and bigger with more intense color. And then the color on the 3rd wall is getting darker and deeper and more somber. And the motifs are getting bigger. So that was the progression of that installation.
Barbara, were these lenticulars, or just some lenticular images?
Just that little green
Okay.
face. But there are other lenticulars that you don't see, but they're all just 12 by 12. Okay, that's a detail of that.
What is lenticular?
Oh, the word means lens-like. I'll show you. There's
Did you ever have Jack in the Box? You know?
cheesy postcards,
Yeah.
winking Jesuses, things like that.
You can turn it like, look,
That
there's
art
Barbara.
that you can
look.
do now as an artist, you can do this. It's so exciting.
You're amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a for me, very iconic. This was 1992, the year of the Rodney King beating. And when we moved to San Pedro, we had wallpaper on our walls, which was toile. It was shepherds and shepherdesses and skipping lambs and festive little vignettes. You've seen this stuff all over. So that was the wallpaper, and we just yanked it off, but I saved some because I thought, oh, this stuff is too good to toss. And then the image underneath, the sienna images, painted from TV. I photographed from television and then painted it. And that's the Rodney King iconic event. So I'm comparing the denial of the wallpaper and the vivid reality of life as we know it in maybe the grimmest time of LA. But I was very much inspired by Warhol, always have been, and the idea of how denial takes over, and the denial in this case is analogous to the wallpaper. So that, to me, man, that was good.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is one of the ones that when Sue Ann and I were working, I had layers of clear mylar, all the same size, and I had a lot of magazines and a lot of pigment pens, and so we would be talking to students, and I would take the paper, the mylar, and put it on a magazine and then draw the character. And then I'd combine the different layers. I didn't plot where they were going to go. I just kind of, if there was a space, I'd put a character. And then I'd put the top layers of this series were fastened together. So hinged at the top, but flopping free at the bottom, so that there was space between each of the clear layers. So what you're seeing is looking through all 3 layers at the combination of newspaper, magazine, current events. And then the detail on the right is the central section.
Her work was more colorful than mine.
Well, I think yours was more thoughtful than mine. So here's a walking by one of the lenticulars, one of the earliest ones that I did. And it's so great because it's another way of combining unlike images. It's magic. And so it's kind of like, what looks like something, what looks like a Mesoamerican mask? Oh, okay, a kiwi. And then the thing is, on computer, you can size them up exactly to the same size and make the comparison impossible to miss. So
I have to say, this is a quote from Dr. John Clark. Strasen's thoughtful and often whimsical selection fascinates and entertains. So I think that's true there. It loves to happen. It all happens at once.
Does it say who the quote
No, it
loves to
doesn't.
happen?
I made it up. No, I don't
St.
know.
Thomas Aquinas. St. Thomas Aquinas. Anyway, I'm trying to remember who the quote is. So, okay, here's another. This is an animation of another lenticular. This was the most fun ever. It's combining two images. One is ironwork from the V&A Museum in London, and the other one was a tree from Hyde Park. And I took all these painted acrylic events that I painted on polyethylene plastic, and you can just peel them up, and then I glued them down on the top of the lenticular to conform to the gesture of the ironwork. So that from one angle you see the tree and you see, well, there's some coherence, you don't know what's going on, but there's a little rhythm of something. But then the minute you move, you see they snap right to the ironwork. So it was very strange to do this artwork because I had to keep moving around like this and this and this and then put something down and then move around. But it was, oh gosh, that was fun.
It reminds me that one of the other quotations, you were educated at a time when minimalism was,
Yes,
was the thing, and could never be your thing.
Definitely not a thing.
Barbara is fascinated by the stuff of the world, material and social, and has always been driven to make art that looks at, comments on, and represents this stuff. That was from Virginia.
Yeah, that's really, they did a really great essay. Okay, so here's another combination of, so this was, this is two motifs. So do you know the wallpaper and the drawings and paintings of William Morris? It's kind of like, what's the most sophisticated representation of nature you could possibly imagine? Well, for me, it's William Morris. Swirly leaves and very elegant this, and I thought they were just beautiful. But then I thought, he needs an iguana. You need something a little closer to real nature. So I wanted to weave a chunk of William Morris wallpaper in with this image of an iguana and homogenize the style. So that was this, and then, you know what I did? I poured coffee on the bottom.
Intentionally?
I did, because I wanted to see if the coffee would stay.
Yeah.
So all the the coffee color is coffee. And then I sealed it with layers of clear acrylic gel, so that there's actually space between the linear networks. And because there's a space, the lines which are opaque cast shadows. Magic. Yeah, it's really
complex.
It weighs a lot. Okay, so this is from a series of works that are done on frosted mylar. So you can sort of see through it. It's not opaque. And some of the painting is done on the back and some is done on the front. And it's a combination of physical collage. So you'll see the contemporary bathers from my photo, and then there's a chunk of a Fragonard, Watteau painting. And so I'm thinking the Watteau people are talking to the contemporary bathers. And then there are some other things, the grapes, and the chunk of the crazy Long Beach islands out there. So in this case, you could actually cut through, cut the material and then glue an image underneath from front to back. And if there's painting on the back, it kind of shows through on the front, sort of like a deep space atmospheric image. So that's that. And here,
So you're sort of thinking three-dimensional.
Yeah. And here's one of my heroes. This is Albrecht Dürer. And if you ever look at any Albrecht Dürer, the 16th century German wonderful artist, and you take away all the cross-hatching and all the messing around, you find the most astonishing motifs, and I really wanted to work with these motifs. So one of the motifs that I've used over and over is clouds turning to guts, turning to intestines. So if you look at it, you'll see clouds, and then all of a sudden it gets twistier. It looks like the large intestine. I mean, it's a little disgusting, but festive. And to me, that seems really important. And then there are also.
Well, it is important because a lot of stuff is going on inside us that we're just oblivious to, right? So, yes, it is important.
Thank you.
This wasn't a film from a colonoscopy. Yes.
And the way that you can tell is the banners. No banners in the colonoscopy.
Okay, good.
But I wanted to weave those motifs and kind of put them in a contemporary context. And this thing took a long time. Went through a lot of stages.
Beautiful.
But that...
How large is this piece?
Maybe 40 by 40. But yeah, Albrecht Dürer, if you want true inspiration, look at Albrecht. Okay, and this is the last one I'm showing. I like it. I'm showing it because it's got a chunk of an embroidery of a house that my friend Judith has in her house that I photographed and printed and then painted on, and then cut up. And then we have all these eyeglasses, which are cut up and painted on top and woven, physically woven, and then glued down. And yeah. So this is the tip of the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg.
So there's an element of sculptural construction, there's an element of collage, there's an element of painting, there's an element of photography. Everything happens all at once.
Never going to get volume. You're never going to get volume out of me. No puffed, never. So any questions?
What are you working on right now?
Right now, seeing these, I decided I'm just going to start some paintings using the essential conventions in these paintings, and use them now to see what would happen if, however many decades later I started working from them. So I started one with a gangplank and water and grass doing this, and and balloons coming up out of the earth. Some afloat, they've just come up, and they've released themselves from the earth, and others are halfway in and halfway out. So I'm doing that right now to see what'll happen. I mean, it could be pretty awful. But a friend of mine would say, devil take the hindmost. Full speed ahead.
Yeah. There's a question from
I
Karina.
have a question. I mentioned this briefly building to you, but I'm so enchanted as a sculptor. I really respond to the sculptural elements of the paintings. But I'm so incredibly enchanted and mesmerized with the way that the canvases, that you have them be wide and how you can stretch canvas to make it like that.
Actually, it's not that hard. You just make the sides stretcher. You make the two sides, cut them out of plywood, so it's this, or it's this, and then you just, you make them.
The canvas can conform like that.
Well, it does. If the two sides are curved, and then you fix them with 1x2s, and then you have a central bar that you can attach the cutouts to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that way you can also add all your sculptural elements.
Yeah.
But they work beautifully as paintings and as sculptures for the wall.
Oh, it is sculpture. Oh my God.
Like, seeing it, I felt like I went back to the 60s. Like when I walked in.
Me too.
Yeah, I know, it was like, wow.
So that's as close to sculpture as I'm ever going to get.
There's another question.
Barbara, were you pressured? Because I swear, you imagined in 66 or 65 what Mick Jagger would look like as an old man.
Which one?
This one over here, we got a cigarette. I swear it was Mick Jagger looking. Oh.
They were married for a little bit of time.
I wouldn't deny it. But sometimes you walk down the street and one out of every three people looks familiar. I don't know if you have that experience, but things like that, show up in the way we might draw noses or faces, or things filter through in all kinds of mysterious ways.
And what about, like the last one you showed, that like was the reading or whatever it was at a friend's house, you've got like that rope motif.
Yes.
And it appeared again, like in 2019.
Same intentions, same purpose.
So what, is it because it links things? Or what?
Oh, the motif? Because I love weaving things front to back, side to side, weaving, intestines, sky, clouds. I just love to do that. And what I'm going to do next is, I've done this before, but I'm going to slice the canvas and have things coming out in front, and then slice it to have it go back in. And, why not?
Yeah. So do you feel more or less inspired to do any more lenticular, or is it just something that's going to wait for a while? Or?
I would like to. There are many factors that have put that on hold, not the least of which is that the company that we worked with has gone out of business, which means that the program that
you were using.
which was specific to this company is kaput.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to start from scratch, which is not, it's not the hardest thing in the world.
Do you want to do more lenticular, or is it just something that you feel like you did and you can wait?
Well, I love it. I mean, I love that as the viewer moves, things change. And I love the idea of painting on top of it. And I love the idea of embedding, well, you didn't even see that in this short video, but there's a way in which you can make a big panorama and embed the lenticular in that thing, so that one of the views is exactly what you see on the wall, and then the other views are completely different. So as you walk by, the lenticular goes invisible, then you walk a little further and, oh, there's a kangaroo, who knows what. But it's got wonderful, it's got so many possibilities that I'm just about to fall off my chair.
What is her studio is amazing. If you haven't been there, we should do an open studio walkthrough. It's really beautiful. But what is your working schedule? Do you work daily? Do you? Because you're so ambitious, and there's such wonderful pieces and everything that you're doing. I can't imagine you not working on those.
I'm trying to reverse it, but typically, I'll deal with all the crap of my life in the first part of the day. Paying the bills and dealing with just the garbage. And then I'll shovel enough of the garbage out the door, and then I'll go to the studio. And the studio's only 5 minutes away. But I'm thinking, that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is go to the studio first, then deal with the garbage. So I'm trying to, I'm working on that transposition.
It's a hard thing to...
Yeah, especially when the garbage is saying, you must do this now, there's a deadline. So, resolving the garbage and the other stuff. See, the thing about art making is, whatever problems happen in art making, you can always solve them. And you hit the wall, you realize it's horrible what you've done, but the seeds of its resuscitation are embedded in the artwork. You can always, pull a rabbit out of a hat. Whereas in real life, either you can, or it's totally impossible. I haven't worked that out yet.
When you do, let me know. Do we have other questions?
I've got a couple of trivial questions. Firstly, Altogether Now, is that the name of the exhibition in 1968, or is that the name that's been given to these?
Oh, that's this one. The title of this one.
When you displayed it now,
Yes.
Yeah, right. We were trying to decide a title for this exhibition, and then later on in the day, it hit me all together now because it's about things happening simultaneously and overlapping, and contradictory things, but not dualistically contradictory things happening at the same time. And then the phrase "all together now" popped into my brain, and then I realized it was a song from the Beatles.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, from 1969, which was of this time. Oh my God, it was
Yeah,
yeah.
happens all the
Yeah.
time.
And the second trivial question, you mentioned at the beginning that you haven't seen these for 50 years. Where were they?
Everybody wants to know.
I love that.
How did they
It's a
stay
good
in
question.
Yeah.
house?
Well,
That's something we didn't.
mind you, they're acrylic, which means they're really tough. I mean, acrylic is tough stuff. You could drive a car over an acrylic painting, and it wouldn't remove the paint. You'd have to remove a lot of crud. But acrylic is really, really tough. And every time we would move, they were wrapped up, and we just move them. That's right.
They were shown in San Francisco.
Delexi Gallery, which is
Yes.
the gallery I was involved with. And I was at the tail end of their existence. So I showed with them for 2 years, and then the gallery closed. And then we moved away from the Bay Area, so there was no follow-on continuity.
There was another question over here?
Barbara, what about the veils?
Oh, I wish I could tell you.
Well, then make
She's
something.
sworn to secrecy.
But I know that I was systematically looking for things that you can put in front of things. So I could glaze the veil in front of a face, and then I could put a cloud in front of the veil. And so I was just kind of building things out in space. And associatively, I'm sure I was aware that, it's harem, but yeah, I would look for things that you could put in front of other things. Not a great answer.
It's-
Meaning to a veil.
Hmm?
There's so many meanings to a veil.
Yeah, right, a veil.
I mean, it's really.
To know a veil, right.
It's very evocative, the veil.
It is.
There was another question over here? Yes.
Yes, the iconography of the rope or the braid or the things running through your compositions, does that have any symbolic significance to it that you chose to repeat that?
I'm sure it does. I know that I was thinking, well, what could I weave in front of these figures? So, and then I remember seeing some ship rope, and I thought, boom, ship rope. But, and of course it talks about tying things up and constraints, and I thought, well, all right, I'm going to do it, and whatever read exists after I do it, devil take the hindmost, full speed ahead. So I was willing to accept it, and it's pretty, yikes.
It's great.
Yes, Dan.
What's the significance of that lonely fellow over there in the White House?
Tuxedo Man. I found him in a magazine, and I really liked him because he was a type, and then I thought, well, I'll put him in a glamorous situation, and for purposes of convenience, I couldn't have his entire self, so I did the cut-offs, and he's knee deep in water, and that doesn't tell you anything, does it? That's as far as we go.
But I think that's,
End of story.
Well, I think a lot of the interpretation can be in the mind of the viewer as well. she doesn't necessarily start out with a story.
Mm-mm.
Yes?
Noticed, and I've seen these clients talking about, that there are many characters in many of these images, but they're not interacting with each other. They're all looking at a spectator.
That's interesting. Well, the way that I did these and the way that I like to work is I would draw the character, big pieces of butcher paper with oil pastel, and then I'd use turpentine to mush about the oil pastel and turn it into paint. Then I'd cut them out with scissors, so each one would be a separate thing. And cutouts are, I have such a love of cutouts, I can't tell you, because when you cut something out, it's real, it's halfway to real. It's magic. And then I would put the cutouts together, and then I might weave them together, and then I'd glue them down, and then they would be the basis for the overall cutout.
Mm.
And then I'd paint the overall cutout to replicate the paper cutouts. So whatever I got when I wove them together is what I was happy to settle with. And if they look like interactions, that's nice. If they look like satire, that's nice. I was, whatever it was, I wanted that weave, and I was willing to settle for whatever I got.
So, is the process as important as the object or the image? What is more satisfying? Because I'm hearing it's a lot of process.
Oh, process. Definitely process.
That's what you would say.
Yeah, definitely process. I mean, composition for me is the toughest because, I'm juggling all these bits and I want them to sort of resolve into some sort of rhythm. And it's almost like conservative and radical. You can be radical with your content, radical with your color, but if you have a composition where things fit together in a cohesive way, then it allows us to think about all the other goofy parts, which if you ask me that tomorrow, I'll have a different answer.
I thought that was a good answer. That's good. Well, it's interesting to, again, visiting your studio, going to LAX and seeing the work that you've done. I mean, it just kind of continues with that layered and juxtaposed theme, and it's not going away, is it? It's gonna, yeah. And you do just an amazing, beautiful job. I mean, yeah.
Going away.
So, yeah.
We
keep
have
going,
mentioned LAX airport now twice. Do any of you remember seeing
Terminal 2.
Terminal 2 lenticular?
You did? You saw it there?
Barbara. On an escalator? Yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to put your work up again, though, right?
No, they took the art down, and then Delta took over the terminal, and they just wanted advertising on all the surfaces.
So you talked a lot about process and not so much about story. So how do you know when you're done? I don't know that, but how do some of the pieces fit together? Do they fit together as part of the story, or is it just whatever comes in association?
I think that the story,
Yeah.
the storytelling, I think, is, as I said before, I think is more in the eye of the viewer. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you set out to tell a specific story about a beach party.
No.
But each of these, I do feel, are strongly representative of the time that they were made. So we relate to that. Some of the imagery, I think, brings up the times.
So how is the, I mean, we're looking at these in the 60s. I'm not trying to age anyone here, but how is it that you're so old now, and how is it that the internet changed it, the computer? And how did that happen gradually, and how much do you use the internet or visuals from the computer?
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
And the way I think about it is, well, first of all, I think of actuarially speaking, meaning, say we're all going to live to whatever age because of medicine and so on. So we have however many decades, and we need to figure out how to not be bored. And the internet is, is just flipping through possibilities so fast that we can't really contemplate. So one of my intentions, my manifesto, is to slow people down, slow them down, because then, why am I slowing them down? Because then we can think about our lives and find meaning that we can't find if we're just kind of chipmunking, just rolling through images really, really fast.
Yeah.
So that's one way in which I think about the internet. And another way is it's this great image resource. If I want to see Albrecht Dürer's intestines turning into clouds, I just look it up. Boom, I'm right there. I mean, I love it. So I can think it, find it,
Yep.
use it.
Yep.
So to me, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful blessing, and it's also, everything else you can think of. But
I love your use of bouquet, because that's exactly.
Yeah, it's nice. There's another question.
Thank you so much for your talk. It's so illuminating to hear you talk about it. But to me, you're documenting a certain time, the counterculture. You were right in the middle of it, probably, because I was.
yeah.
And but you weren't painting from a Los Angeles perspective. You were in the Bay Area, and then were you also before that on the East Coast?
Yes.
So, so it was just what was happening all over the country, wouldn't you say? Or do you feel like your location affected the painting, where these were painted, and where were they? Where were you living?
I think of myself as a New Yorker, because that's where I grew up. And moving to the Bay Area via Pittsburgh, which is where I went to graduate school, I was just so excited to get away from home. I can't begin to tell you. So everything was a major thrill. And I loved the Bay Area. And of the time, I remember bicycling across Berkeley. I rented a garage as a studio, and I was bicycling across Berkeley, and then when I came back, I just wasn't feeling right. It was feeling weird. And then when I got back to our apartment, I learned that there was tear gas. There was a demonstration in tear gas and exploding, and it was tear gas poisoning that everyone was experiencing. And there were all kinds of timely adventures having to do with that time. I could run on and on forever.
So,
Okay.
well, we could do this all day. And so I thank you, everybody, for coming. And please say a little hello to Barbara before we go.
Oh, you're welcome.